Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to another speed build for the Disney save. Today we are going to be working on the final Aladdin build for this neighborhood. It's been this little corner of 5 lots that I have been working on. I'm not sure what this neighborhood is called in The Sims 4, but it is the bottom right neighborhood if you're looking at the overview map in Oasis Springs. So I knew kind of when designing Oasis Springs that I was probably going to be sectioning off the map by these neighborhoods per movie if possible. Just because of the way that the map is sort of lined up, it makes all of the lots face each other in circles, and it felt like the best, most cohesive way to do this was to try to keep all of the movies together in their little bubbles. But we have some really big builds coming up for Aladdin, and there was one that we of course had to do for Miss Jasmine, and that meant that right away immediately one of the big lots in the world had to be taken up for said lot. So I knew that that was going to be kind of outside of the Aladdin neighborhood, but regardless, all of the other builds could go here. And in the background of this video, you'll see everything else that we have done so far, including Agrabah Market, Aladdin's Rental, Genie's Lamp, 3 Wishes Pool. And if you've missed any of that, please check it out in the Disney Save playlist linked down below. Lots and lots of really, really cool Aladdin references and stuff already done for the save file. The last thing that I kind of wanted to do as sort of a creative idea, this is one of those things that isn't based on anything from the movie. This is something of my own design. I really wanted something that made reference to the whole new world scene in the film. It is such a big, important scene. It is iconic. Everybody knows this scene, even if you're not familiar with Disney. It has been referenced and parodied, and it is such a big part of Disney media. To not include something that was specifically referencing a whole new world in the save file would have been a total miss. So kind of coming up with ideas for this, what could we possibly do? I rewatched the scene over and over again, trying to think of what I could possibly come up with, because this is essentially a scene that the characters are going from one place to another. So it doesn't make sense to do any of the given locations that they go to, because they go to all these countries and they're flying through the sky, and it's how do you even turn that into an idea for the save file that can be stagnant and just be a one thing on one lot? And then I was taking a look at lot types and what we already have planned for the world, what was missing. Because Oasis Springs is so big, it really gave me the opportunity to do a lot of the different lot types that The Sims offers, and I really took that opportunity. I wanted to have as many different types of lots here as possible, with as few repeating as possible. I usually don't like to do more than one restaurant or more than one park in a given world. However, this world just has so much space, and there are only so many lot types. It makes sense to maybe do a couple that are repeating, but in that case they have to be really different from one another, and this one is very unique. So this is actually a park, and this is based on a whole new world, basically different structures representing all of the different countries that Aladdin and Jasmine travel through in the scene in order from the back to the front. So they actually start in Agrabah, and there is one of the buildings kind of near the palace that you see pretty much immediately, and I've taken that building and recreated it in the back left corner of the lot. So that's kind of like Agrabah, and then they go to, I think Egypt might be next. So I wanted to have some reference to the pyramids, and you'll see my translation of that change a few times in this video because I didn't want this to be too cheesy. I know I'm combining a lot of ideas here, but I didn't want it to look weird. I still wanted it to be really cohesive and feel like a park that you can still sort of organically find in the natural world. They then go over this winding river that has sailboats in it, or some kind of sailboat. I don't believe they're traditional sailboats. And then they go to Greece, so there are a couple of different Greek buildings, and then they end up in China, and they're sitting on top of some sort of really extravagant Chinese building where they're having a festival on the ground below. And I wanted all of these iconic places represented in this build, again, in a way that really makes sense. I feel like this could be a park that you sort of see in real life, where maybe the different countries have sponsored little pavilions to represent their countries and show some architecture off and show off some history. Very Epcot vibes, but I also do think of my life here in London, and there are some things here, some parks you can go to where you'll just sort of be strolling through a park and you'll round the corner and there will be this absolutely beautiful building that is based on architecture of another country, and they're very often sponsored by that country or have something to do with like history or peace negotiations between that country, and they're created sort of like in honor of that other place and with oversight of that given country. So I'm kind of thinking that that's the move here. And then of course it has to be a whole new world. It has to be like all the little references from the movie. It has to be exactly the structures that are shown. So again, back left corner is the Agrabah themed building, and that one is completely taken from the movie. The two Greek buildings are also shown in the film, and then I'd say the only one that I kind of strayed a little bit away from what was actually shown in the movie is Egypt, because they do show the pyramids, and I believe they also show another location in Egypt that just wasn't going to be easily recreated. So I really still wanted that reference here without it being too silly looking and just like pyramids in the middle of a park that kind of doesn't make a ton of sense. So you'll see later on in the video what I actually do with that particular building to help utilize it in the space a little bit better, and it goes through a couple of different iterations. But ultimately I just wanted all pieces of the lot to still be super functional. Like, how can I make this a space that is still a park that people want to use? It's not just something that you come here to look at. So we have to have lots of usable items as well, tucked away into the buildings, maybe in the buildings that make the most sense given what they actually are. The lot is also going to double as a wedding venue. I don't think that we have a dedicated wedding venue lot for Oasis Springs, but I do think that it was important to possibly have one in here. So I wanted to make sure you had everything that you could need to potentially use this as a wedding venue. So all you have to do is go to the settings when you download the save and switch over this lot type to the wedding type, and it will work just the same. It'll just be like a park that not as many people come to, but then also you can come here and use it as a wedding venue. Particularly, I set up the Chinese themed building in the front right corner of the lot as the wedding venue area, because I was trying to think about like the future of the save and what other types of opportunities I will have to possibly do wedding based lots. And I don't think I'm going to have too many more that are specifically dedicated to some Asian culture. So I wanted to take the opportunity to have that available in the save if you wanted to use it. For particular characters, I did think of Mulan and Shang. They're not technically married in the save. They are boyfriend and girlfriend, so you could go through their whole storyline and have them get married, and this is a really pretty place for them to do so, definitely. I know that's not Aladdin themed, but that's okay. There is also chess on this lot. There are some swings. There is a grill and little cooking patio area. The inside of the Agrabah building also has like a meditation space for Sims to be able to meditate, kind of that little bump out that you see on the Agrabah themed building on the right. That is specifically like a meditation room. Now, the one Greek themed building that is in the middle of the winding river is, I don't believe, going to be accessible. I haven't play tested this lot as of doing the voiceover, but just based on like general Sims knowledge, I don't believe you're going to be able to get up into that. So I just put a fountain in there, nothing crazy. It is a little bit more for aesthetics and to try to like utilize this space in a really, really fitting way. So that's the only one that doesn't quite have a purpose, but everything else I wanted it to be super useful. And ultimately, I do think that you could utilize this as a wedding venue in a couple of different ways. You'll see when I start to structure out the Egypt section a little bit, I put a patio on the side of that, and you could easily pop the wedding arch there if you don't want to use it inside of the other building and have it be outdoors and use kind of like that background and that landscape to do a wedding. It's customizable. I always really recommend that if you don't like something I've done with the save, that you customize it and tailor it to your needs and your storytelling purposes. So in the beginning of the build, it was really just about placing everything down and trying to make sure that everything fits in a way that isn't going to be too crowded. We're trying to represent quite a few ideas here, and I knew I wanted the winding river, so I was going to be doing a little bit of terrain manipulation, which always causes a slight loss in the landscaping area, like the area that your Sims can actually walk around. You need a path to get through this park. I did very much think of London. The parks here are very beautiful. It's something that is really just special about London, is there's all these parks and there's just these winding paths through all of them, and there's so much to see, and little monuments and fountains and little bits of water with all the birds and all of the wildlife. It's something that I personally really enjoy here. Now, you guys, The Sims 4 Love Struck, as of you seeing this video, is officially live. I did record this a few weeks before the pack was out and the pack update was out. So I haven't bought it yet, but I'm planning on it. There's a lot of cool stuff that I've seen in the build and buy. I can't speak much for like the gameplay and the world. I did watch the Sims 4 live stream and look at everything, and I'm always curious about the new world, right? Because I need to know, what is it based on, where in the world, what Disney movies could I potentially be saving down the line for that future world. So whenever a new world comes out, I'm all over it. I need to know, because I gotta like mentally plan a little bit. It doesn't make sense if I'm not thinking about the future of where movies could potentially go, because that's just going to cause bad planning on my part. But I have to say, the new world, it is going to be one of the most difficult to come up with ideas for. There are some things that make a lot of sense, but then I feel like the world aesthetically is not going to fit the vibes of the movies. So it might be one of those cases where I think I'm going to wait. Like, you probably won't see Ciudad Enamorada, I believe it's called, in the save file, in the Disney save for a little bit, because it just doesn't spark immediate inspiration. If you guys have any ideas and you feel like you thought of something immediately when you saw the world, please let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Always love some ideas, because even just talking with patrons, we were a little bit all over the place. Like, there are some things that'll work, but it doesn't immediately spark that creativity. So I think I'm going to be staying away from it for a little bit and doing some other things in the save file that I know are going to work really well and I've been planning. And also, as much as The Sims is always releasing new content, Disney is also. So whenever a new Disney movie comes out, I'm always thinking, where could this go? And does it go in a world that I've already done? Hopefully not. But as much as The Sims puts out new content, Disney has new movies that I can now plug in to some of these new worlds. So I know we're getting a lot of worlds, and like when I started this project years and years and years ago, there were only X amount of worlds and X amount of Disney movies, and you could kind of piece it together like a puzzle, and it made perfect sense. And now it's gone on so much longer than I think anybody could have guessed, but we're still getting Disney content at the end of the day, so I do still have stuff to pull from. I've also not touched on a lot of like key classic Disney movies, even still, even after we've done like Little Mermaid and Moana, and now we're doing Aladdin. I've not done Lion King, I have not done Cinderella. There are some really good things to come. I haven't done the Tangled Castle, which is so highly requested, and I will say is coming later on in the save file, just a few worlds away, if you will. It all kind of depends on what patrons vote on. That is something that I offer on my Patreon as an exclusive little thing, as being a part of the community. My patrons usually get to pick the new world. They picked Oasis Springs. Not that I wasn't excited to do this, because this has been long requested and I think really, really look forward to for a lot of people, but I didn't pick this one out. I do pick it every once in a while. I picked Moonwood Mill because it was quick and easy, and it was around Halloween time, and I knew I was going to be able to get that done kind of really fast and just kind of get it out of the way. But this is a big world. It might be the second biggest, if not the biggest, next to Willow Creek. I don't remember how many lots that one has off the top of my head. So whenever a bigger world gets chosen, I know that that's my project for months and months to come. And I will be here for quite a while. But something I did mention in my previous speed build video of the little Aladdin 3 Wishes pool is that I think what I'm going to be doing for Oasis Springs that's new is giving out, on the gallery at least, my Sims that are Aladdin themed and the builds from this neighborhood and the ones that are coming up in the next couple of videos early. I have to polish them all up and make sure everybody's got their outfits and playtest everything, but I'll put them out on the gallery early for you guys to download, because otherwise you'll be waiting till the end of this world to be finished to get everything. And normally that's going to be maybe like a month or two wait, but I think with Oasis Springs it's going to be much, much longer. And I'm also going to Disney World in less than a month. So that's going to take like a little break for me out of the middle of this world, which is going to be much, much needed. But it is a lot of time for people to wait, and I always get really anxious. I know nobody means any harm, but when I get messages that are like, when is this available? I always read it with a little bit of attitude, and I just have anxiety. I can't be dealing with stuff like that. Especially now that I have been doing TikTok. I'm really excited about TikTok, you guys. I think it's going to put more eyes on the save, and I always want to bring more people into the community, more Disney Disney lovers, more opinions and thoughts, and just build as many little people here as I can together. And so I've been putting out little TikToks about the Aladdin builds, and there will also be stuff on my TikTok that is just exclusive to TikTok. Like maybe I'll be taking a look at some of the past builds in the save file, some updates and changes that I've made, maybe some little tutorials here and there if you want to get really specific about something that I've done in a build where I don't show you like exactly how to do it. I might throw some of that stuff over on TikTok as well. So I really encourage you guys to follow me, of course. I think it's going to be a good time. I'm also going to be showing off some of my stuff when I go to Disney World. I'm going to the Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween party, and I'm really excited for the snacks and the experience. I have been to the Mickey's Christmas party before and I loved it. So I'm going to be doing some TikToks on that as well. Definitely follow me over there. It is linked down below, and it's also TomilynYT if you want to just search me up over there. But yeah, going to Disney World does mean I take a little break, which is good for me, but it just would have been maybe a little bit too long for some people to wait for the builds and the Sims, which will be coming up super soon, because when we're done with this build, as you can see when we're spinning around this little neighborhood here, this is the end of this section of Oasis Springs. Now I have 2 more planned Aladdin builds. The next one is Agrabah Palace. It's massive, it's beautiful, it is the most perfect castle that I have ever made. I am ecstatically proud of it. I think it is pretty much flawless. I am so excited for you guys to see it. It has everything in it that you could possibly want. I promise, and so much more. And it's just beautifully decorated, and my personal new favorite of all of my Disney castles, which is saying a lot because I actually really like a lot of my Disney castles. My Brave castle comes to mind quite a bit, but I had so much fun making that castle, and I think it's very aesthetically pleasing, and it came out super good. My husband speaks very highly of Arendelle Castle. He says that that is his favorite, but this is my new one. Even beating out my personal favorite, like the Little Mermaid castles, King Triton's castle, Prince Eric's castle. Although I like those and they're still like very high up there, and like I love Little Mermaid, this beats it, tops it by a mile. So excited to show you guys. It's going to be a super long video. I'm doing it all in one go. It's over an hour. I hope you guys like it. And then after that, I'll be making the Aladdin household that's going to be living there, and there will be one more Aladdin themed build to go along that's kind of in conjunction with the palace, but not quite. So you'll see some of that coming up in the near future. And as we kind of close out the end of the video, you can see me adding the detail to some of these buildings. I've really been loving the for rent windows. They are so beautiful and detailed, and I think that's something that's very specific about like Agrabah themed builds, is you really want to get that architectural detail as much as possible, especially in things like windows, columns, like little bits of color inside of that makes it look correct. Desert Luxe also comes in handy. That's a kit, and I believe the other one is called Outdoor Oasis. Possibly. It is very specific styling of architecture that fits in perfectly with Aladdin, and that's definitely going to be utilized here for this building, but also coming up for the Agrabah Palace. I would have loved to had made this Agrabah building a little bit more utilized with the different floors, maybe put some painting easels, some hobby-based skills on the upper levels, but we just don't have great staircasing options for these really tight column buildings. That is always a really big struggle for me whenever doing castles, because they always have these pillar buildings that are on the edges of rooms, and they're probably most likely utilized for like a spiral staircase purpose, or the spiral staircase would be in the center of like the main room, and then you could kind of like branch off to those pillared rooms a little bit better. But we don't have a lot of great solutions for that in The Sims. The staircases just take up way too many tiles, and I don't like using ladders unless it makes sense. I don't really want a ladder hanging off the side of that building, or inside of it for that matter, because it's just not aesthetically correct. And can you imagine going to a park in real life and you wanted to go to the second floor of this beautiful building and you had to climb up a ladder? That's absolutely crazy, right? So I do think about stuff like that, and it's not my favorite thing to do. So I ended up just kind of clearing out the top of the building and deleting the floor foundation so that you get these really pretty tall ceilings with tiling, and doing more of like an architectural staple in that building. There is some seating, there is a bathroom in there as well that is necessary for the lot type, and there is that meditation occupation space, but ultimately it's a little bit more of a look around pretty type of building than it is fully utilized for the different floors. And you can also see the wedding venue coming to shape here. I do have Mulan on the back of my mind when doing this style of architecture. Mulan has also been recently added to Dreamlight Valley, so I've been taking a look at some of the assets that Dreamlight Valley has been adding in with the curtains and the types of windows and things, and just trying to match some of that up with what they're using as well. This building is shown in the movie, and they're having some kind of a festival with a dragon puppet or float of sorts kind of on the ground in front of it, so it might be a palace, it might be a building of significance or importance, and I wanted to decorate it sort of similarly to how I did the Emperor's Palace way back in Mount Komorebi, so you'll see some of that similar style and some of those similar pieces moved over, but I did have something to go off of. It's just that I had to scale it down a little bit. And I do want to mention, just as like a final note for today, that there is this really cool statue that comes in the debug of For Rent because we got the tiger sanctuary added, and I know that's a rabbit hole and like that's not cool and everything, but they added some tiger themed items with For Rent, and I've been keeping an eye on that for specifically Aladdin because there was a statue that came in it, and it's like this beautiful woman dressed very royally, and she has a little tiger next to her, and it immediately screamed Jasmine and Raja. I was so excited to see that because I knew I was going to be using it at the palace and maybe some of my Aladdin themed builds. This is the first one that I'm doing that has anything to do with Jasmine. A lot of the other ones have been themed off of other characters, but Jasmine is in the scene, so I wanted to use it here. I don't want to overuse it because it's like a really cool nod to the film, and sometimes I'm like, is the Sims team making this for me? Like, it just feels so specific and really like important for me in my save file. I'm like, someone's got their eyes on it. They know that I need this stuff. These like special little statues that are almost Disney-esque, or these items that are like so close to Disney. They must be taking inspiration from Disney here and there, which is just like perfect for me. So you will see that I popped that into the park here. It'll also be featured at the palace, not to overutilize it, but of course it had to go there as well. For Rent in general, for all of its quirks and issues, has really been key for the save file for a long time. There's a lot of stuff in For Rent that the build and buy is just so necessary at this point for the Disney save. So whenever people ask me like what packs should you get, I'm gonna be the worst person ever to ask this question of, because if you're specifically looking at the Disney save, unfortunately my answers are gonna be things like you need to buy For Rent, you need to get Star Wars. I use Star Wars a lot. All of the build and buy and the clothing, it's very, very versatile for what I'm doing here. And Cottage Living, also a big one, but everybody loves that pack. That's neither here nor there. And that is going to be the end of today's video. I hope you guys liked the Whole New World arc. Let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. If you'd like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or at the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and I will talk to you all in the next one.